Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bells Must Ring podcast. I am your host, Andrew Rice, with my usual co host, Arnav Sarkar. We are doing a little bit of something special for you guys today. We're doing a season preview where we are going to be breaking down each opponent that Rutgers has to play in the 2025 season and predicting whether each team will win or which team will lose. With that, we're just going to go ahead and get started. With with Rutgers game tomorrow against Ohio University. Ohio struggled in Power 4 games last season, lost to Syracuse and Kentucky by pretty marginal scores, but that Syracuse game was a lot closer at 38-22, but Kentucky blew them out 41-6, showing that they had a little bit of struggles in the Power 4. They did win their bowl game last season and won the MAC championship. So this is a good team, especially a good team from the lower level. They took home the Cure Bowl. Like I said, they took home the MAC championship. So this is not a team that, it's not a team coming from below that Rutgers is going to expect to kill. The line is 14.5 right now. For the money line to see if Rutgers can cover or not, which is only 2 touchdowns at the end of the day.
Right.
They are returning a lot of production on offense. Parker Navarro tossed 2,423 passing yards last season, recorded 13 touchdowns through the air, had 1,054 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns on the ground. On defense, they get back linebacker Logan Blake Leak. Oh my God, why did I say Logan? Blake Leak. Who totaled 94 tackles and 1 forced fumble and 1 interception. And the returning production at wide receivers, Blake Hendricks, who caught 40 catches for 471 yards and 1 touchdown. This is a lot of turnover for this Ohio team. They still have a very talented roster, but their offense is going to look completely different, along with their coaching staff, as they're getting a new coach in Brian Smith, and as their former head coach, Tim Albin, took the Charlotte job. They lost a lot of talent on both sides of the line. Top receivers, Bradley Weaver obviously went to Rutgers. Wow. I'm looking at that name and I'm like, I don't know how to.
C.A. Bangura, their running back.
Yeah, C.A. Bangura. They got a new running back in the offseason. They finished 9th in the country in total defense last season. But despite all of that, the line from the Rutgers game moved from 10.5 points to 14.5 points. Probably because the amount of turnover that Ohio has had, and Rutgers has had considerably less turnover, but we'll see. What do you think about Rutgers' matchup against Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a good season opener. I mean, Ohio, like you said, they're no pushover team. They won the MAC championship. They won 11 games last season. Then again, at the same time, they did struggle in the Power 4 games. Syracuse was a ranked team, 38-22, which is reasonably close, I would say, which is probably the way a lot of people expect this Rutgers game to go. The second one against Kentucky, 41-6, and that wasn't a very good Kentucky team. So that did worry me a little bit. I did look at that game a little bit further, and I saw they had their backup quarterback in that game. I think Navarro's injured, and I think that played a bit of a role because he had a pretty not a great game. He was 8 for 19 or something. So Kentucky took advantage. Kentucky wasn't the best team either. I mean, they had their moments too. They beat Georgia, or they didn't beat Georgia. They almost beat Georgia. I wanted them to. They did beat Ole Miss, and they blew out anyone on a lower level. So, which seems to be like a thing with even sometimes, bad to worse Power 4 teams or in the middle. But Ohio, you couldn't hang with the backup quarterback in that game. Even if they had their starter, they probably would have lost, but it would have been closer. But that kind of explains what would be a little bit of an anomaly for that Ohio team, because that really was surprising. But then when I look at it, like, having a backup in there didn't really help. Kentucky, their quarterback had a good game. Again, like that power, like 4 versus group 5 thing does play a role, whether you like that or not. But at the same time, I mean, I think this one's going to be more like the Syracuse game, where it's going to be like a tough, gritty win for the Scarlet Knights. I mean, I wrote about this in the predictions article that we're going to put out. But I mean, Ohio does replace a lot, but Rutgers, has a lot of continuity on offense. They bring in these transfers on defense. Ohio also replaces a bit, but they still bring back Parker Navarro, who's been really good. They bring back 4 of their top 5 receivers. Their tight end, as Greg Schiano mentioned, very solid. So I feel like their offense is actually going to be able to, kind of keep up for a while. The defense might be a little bit of an issue. This game might be a little higher scoring than people might think, but I think Ohio does hang in there. I feel like Rutgers kind of has that habit of like leaving teams in there, especially like a good one in for a while. The first half is going to be close, as it usually always is. I mean, it's also been the other way around when Rutgers has been a heavy dog. They've been able to hang around too in the first half. So I don't think there's going to be too much separation in the first half. Rutgers will probably have a little bit of a lead. There might be some point where Ohio has a lead too, but I think Rutgers has a slight lead at halftime. Second half they pull away. I think the Navarro ends up dazzling a little with his legs, and he's a really good mobile quarterback. But I mean, I think he had some issues with interceptions last year. I think the pass rush starts to hit home for Rutgers, and I think on offense, the offensive line for Rutgers looks really good this year. They're still wrapping up some positions, but there's a lot of continuity on that O line. I think that's going to show up in the second half against a relatively new a relatively new defensive front for Ohio. So in the second half, I think Rutgers pass rush is going to get in on Navarro and slow down Bangor, the whole Ohio attack. While on the other side of the ball, Rutgers is going to be able to protect Kagmanis, and he's going to be able to get some of his playmakers involved. We want to get to see DT Sheffield in action. He's dynamic. CJ Campbell, even like guys like Antoine Raymond, Ian Strong. I think they're going to be able to get that passing offense involved. And yeah, I think Rutgers does cover the spread. And they win the game. It might be similar to 38-22. I had my score prediction on that article is 38-20. It might be something around that line. But yeah, I mean, I think Rutgers gets like a late touchdown in the fourth quarter that kind of makes it a little bit less close than it really seemed.
I understand that both offenses are very dynamic. However, at the end of the day, you're talking about a lot of turnover on that Ohio defensive line. I mean, Ohio offensive line. Sorry.
That's true. Yeah.
Rutgers brings in Eric O'Neill and Bradley Weaver from Ohio. Plus, as a reserve role, you have Jordan Walker, who led the team in sacks last season. I think that defensive line, maybe after the first couple drives, because I feel like Ohio's going to score a little bit early,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like after the first couple drives, that defensive line begins to wreak some havoc, and then the game completely flips from there. Like I said, I think Rutgers is going to get maybe punched in the mouth a little bit early.
Yeah.
Ohio goes score for score with Rutgers.
Right.
Rutgers scores 7, Ohio scores 7, Rutgers scores again, Ohio scores again, but then after that, I feel like Rutgers kind of handles business, shuts them out, pulls away in the second half,
Yeah,
and
I think
eventually
so.
covers that 14.5 point spread. I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio tacked on one more score somewhere. I just personally, I don't see it happening with the amount of turnover, because if you look at it, turnover on our defense, yes, but also improvement talent-wise could be. Bo Masco has been somebody that's been waiting in the wings in our secondary forever. You bring along Cam Miller from Penn State, who played in the college football playoff. Like, it wasn't like he was some bench warmer. He was. He did appear in the
back
college
there at
football
safety,
playoff.
and I think one of the reasons he wanted to come to Rutgers is they were going to give him a corner spot. And obviously, I mean, I remember him because he blew like coverage that or no, he got his ankles broken by like one of Notre Dame's receivers. But now that he's on our team, I mean, like, no, in all seriousness, like a really solid player. Jet Elad too. And then that pass rush, as you mentioned, I think is really good for for Rutgers. And yeah, I mean, I do think that like you said, I think they're going to go shot for shot in the beginning. I think Ohio's going to be able to move the ball early. They're going to, especially Navarro on his legs, and you have Banger in there. Like I think they're going to be able to move the ball methodically to get on the board and kind of go drive for drive. But then eventually, maybe second quarter, so definitely second half, that pass rush is going to get there. Eric O'Neal, Bradley Weaver. Watch out. Maybe he has a sack on his, against his former team. So I think Rutgers is going to slow down Ohio. I mean, they bring in a lot of offensive line transfers. I think Rutgers is going to be able to wear, their defensive line is going to be able to get to Navarro in the second half. And then on the offensive side, they bring in a lot of transfers. Like a lot of their best defensive linemen are gone too. So I think Rutgers with their Big Ten offensive line with continuity, they're going to be able to wear down Ohio's defensive front, pull ahead, and on the meantime, stop Navarro and the Ohio attack. I think Ohio does tack on a couple field goals, which is why I have them at 20 instead of 14. But I think Rutgers is able to make touchdowns out of that, and yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this game. Like that's why I have them by 18. But I mean, I think around that range is it's probably not going to be exactly right, but around that range is probably what you're looking at for this game.
Yeah. Moving on to our second opponent of the year, we have Miami, Ohio. Try not to make that one too confusing, Rutgers.
We have Ohio, Miami, Ohio. We don't have
And then
Miami
Ohio State.
and
We're
Ohio.
just
Yeah, I
declaring
mean,
war on everybody on the entire state of Ohio.
exactly. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be nice to have our first two, and then we have Ohio State later in the year. But I mean, Miami, Ohio. Yeah, I mean they went 9-5. They lost in the MAC championship to those Ohio Bobcats that we just talked about. They beat Colorado State. So again, with the Power Four struggles, kind of same trend. Northwestern, they lost 13-6. That was not a very good Northwestern team. Kind of a sluggish. They came down to the end. I mean, Miami, Ohio gave themselves a fighting chance to win. They lost to Cincinnati 27-16, which is also reasonably close, but again, not too great of a Cincinnati team. Notre Dame was a little bit more of a struggle, 28-3, but that was the team that played in the national championship. So I mean that's understandable. NIU actually was able to pull off that upset from the MAC. So again, anything can happen. So you never want to take anything for granted, especially against teams like these. But in terms of who they're returning, they're back. Keon Mosey, who had over almost 1,100 yards. Linebacker Matt Solopek, who had 122 tackles and led the team. Defensive lineman Brian Ugu, 7.5 sacks, which led the team. Running back Jordan Brunson, linebacker Adam Trick, who's supposed to have a bigger role this year. He had 37 tackles and 4.5 sacks last year. And just like Ohio, another strong safety duo here. Silas Waters and Eli Bleakley, which on this outline, the top safety duo in the MAC. So I mean, a very good back end of the defense. Both of these squads had pretty good defenses last year, and then in terms of the additions. I think the biggest one on offense, obviously, DeQuan Finn, dual threat quarterback. He had over 7,000 yards at Toledo. Going to provide an infusion of offense here for Miami of Ohio. And then, some new receivers coming in from the Power Four. By Job from Kansas, another Power Four transfer, a new offensive line. Their defense was good at takeaways, but a little bit of a limited pass rush. And final notable that on our sheet is they play Wisconsin, another Big Ten team in the opener. I think the line for that game is like 17.5 last time I checked. It might have moved. But that's, it's probably going to be similar to where that is with Rutgers. Maybe a little bit less. I don't know exactly, depending on how that game goes. But I mean, typically Rutgers is also kind of struggle against Wisconsin. But I feel like now it's a lot more.
This Wisconsin team is significantly weaker than they were in the past, too.
Yeah, Rutgers is probably very in line with where Wisconsin is now, and Wisconsin also has a notoriously hard schedule this year that might, but this game they'll be favored in, and Rutgers, yeah, the line's probably going to be similar. It's probably going to be influenced by how Rutgers does against Ohio, which is a similar caliber opponent to Miami, Ohio. It's going to be influenced by how Miami, Ohio does against Wisconsin, which is a similar caliber opponent to Rutgers. So a lot of comparison, a lot of Big Ten versus MAC in the first couple weeks, but yeah, Miami, Ohio. I mean, so you have Ohio coming in, and then I mean, like we have that as a win. What's your thoughts on this game? Is it going to be like similar, like where it's kind of like a tough one, Rutgers pulls away, or like what are you thinking for our second game here?
I think because we had a great conversation with Steve Helwick from the Hustle Belt, the SB
Right.
Nation's
Yeah.
Mac page. He said that the core of Miami, Ohio football is to get ugly, ugly, ugly. Make the
Yeah.
game as ugly as possible and win as ugly as possible.
It's
I
usually the
think they're
best.
going to try to do that. I think
Yeah.
they're going to succeed a little bit, maybe in the first quarter, perhaps even in the first half. But I feel like after that first half ends, Rutgers is just kind of, I don't want to say walk all over them, but they're going to handle business without too much of a concern. I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets a little bit more out of hand than the Ohio one. Um, I would take Rutgers to win this maybe by at least 3 scores, I would say.
Oh wow.
Um, that's what I'm willing to go. I would say Rutgers takes this by at least 3 scores.
Yeah. Again, it's like it's a weird comparison with like the top of the power group before and then the middle of the Big Ten. Like logically, you might think it might be a little bit closer, but then again, like Rutgers, the way they'll be settled into this game. I feel like with Ohio, there's going to be some first game nerves, and there's going to be a lot of unknowns on both sides. I feel like that plays a role into it. Rutgers, I think, does pull away in the second half by, I think they're going to be able to score points. They're going to be able to shut down they're gonna be able to score points and shut down Ohio's attack, and probably something similar against Miami of Ohio. I think with DeQuan Finn, I think again like Parker Navarro, he's another dual threat, and that seems to be a recipe for some success. So I think they will get going a little bit, and they'll try to make it ugly, and they'll hang in the first half. Then Rutgers again kind of similarly pulls away in the second, and I think they're more comfortable in the second game. I think Ohio rattles a little bit in the first game, makes a little bit it's a bit more nerve wracking before Rutgers really finds their groove. In this game, Rutgers is they'll be more gelled. They're going to be coming off a win like that against Ohio, where it's kind of very hard fought, and they pulled away. So all those first game jitters are going to be gone. Rutgers is going to be more comfortable. I could see Rutgers winning the first game by like 14, maybe 17. The second game, a little bit more gelled in, comfortable. They could win by 3 scores. Like I think that's a pretty valid prediction. Like, yeah, with Miami, Ohio trying to win ugly, like this isn't. I mean, like with that Northwestern game, it kind of got like that. But I feel like this Rutgers team is better than where that Northwestern team was, and their passing offense is a lot better than where that Northwestern team was, where both teams really struggled on offense because Northwestern really slowed them down. Miami slowed Northwestern down quite a bit. I don't really see that happening. I think Rutgers is going to have enough offense to get over the top in this game. So I don't know if we have like a score prediction, but I mean like I think the 3 touchdown. I think after the first game becomes like a 17-point win late. Like the second game's more of a comfortable like 20-point win for the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the official score predictions out for pretty much everything else in the rest of the podcast. I mean, we already did our score predictions for Ohio, so that's a little bit different. We can just
Right.
stick by those and explain those. But I think I don't know if I just don't know if I think because of the way that Miami, Ohio wants to win, they want to win ugly, just like Steve Helwick said.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have the capacity to win ugly against a team like Rutgers especially because of that new and
The new and improved
new
passing.
and improved passing game.
If this was like the old Rutgers, I would say like sure, like potentially, but like, this one, no, like I don't see that happening. Like, you'd have had to go back a few years in time to really be able to try to pull that one out, and for that to really be like that kind of a contest. I feel like it's going to be open. But yeah, I mean, I think the difference between these two is Ohio. I think their offense is going to try to like put points and try to keep up a little bit, and Miami
Yep.
Ohio is probably going to try to play it more of an ugly game. Although I mean, with DeQuan Finn, like I mean, that might change a little bit. I mean, I think he might have an impact on their own offense too. So I mean, I feel like it's not just gonna. I mean, it's not going to be a complete sleeper of a game, and they're not going to be able to limit Rutgers that much. They're going to try to like keep up with it to an extent too. But I mean, compared to Ohio, like I feel like they're probably going to end up playing the game more ugly, and I don't know. I don't really see that going too well for them. But I mean, they held these bigger teams in check offensively to 13,
Yeah,
27,
but you
28.
also got to think about Cincinnati was the bottom of the Big 12.
Yeah,
Northwestern was the bottom of the Big
that's
10.
what I'm saying.
In
Yeah,
the basement feeding off of the rats. In
yeah, Rutgers is
reality,
kind of like out of that.
we are not in the basement of the Big 10. No
Yeah,
matter
that's what
what,
I mean. Yeah.
no matter what the college football world wants you to think, we are not in the Big Ten's basement anymore.
Right.
We're too
So,
good to be in the Big Ten's basement.
and even
Um,
and even those teams like were able to beat Miami of Ohio and Ohio largely. So I mean, I think that's why it gives me some confidence that Rutgers should be able to win this game and a little bit more comfortably than teams like Northwestern and Cincinnati did. But yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, I think the 20-point win is apt. Again, these are going to be good tests for later on in the season, though. I mean, I think Rutgers is definitely going to have to work hard to win these games and. It's not going to be as easy as fans, who don't really follow the team might think, oh, whatever, we're playing a MAC opponent. Like, they have to come to play. But I think if they do, like, they do win these games and,
pretty comfortably, I would say.
yeah, pretty comfortably. But they still get their practice in. They still get, tested enough where, like, they're ready for, like, when the level of competition takes a jump up.
And speaking of a jump up in competition, Rutgers the next week gets to invite Norfolk State, who went 4-8 last season. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the competition takes a step down before it takes a step up for us, but for them, it actually does take a step up because Norfolk State coming to Rutgers, week 3, 4-8 last year, but I mean, they beat Howard, who we played last year by 1. They lost to East Carolina 42-3, who I don't know. I mean, I think they were like a decent Group of 5 team, or I think they beat
they're
NC
not in the
State.
group of 5. They're in the FCS.
East Carolina. I
No,
thought they
no,
were.
I mean Norfolk State.
Norfolk State's in the FCS and the MEAC. East Carolina Group of 5. I remember they beat NC State in the bowl, and they play them now in the opener, which also might be tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. I think it is, but either way, Michael Vick, the head coach. Our returners. I mean, some of the top players are coming back, especially in offense. You have Jalen Daniels, who had 1,330 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. A little bit of a dual threat. He had 86 rushes, 137 yards, which doesn't sound good considering how many carries that is. But still, Kevon King, running back, 161 carries, 944 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Linebacker Tariq Miles, who I believe is one of the leading tacklers, 75 tackles, 2.5 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. They have a 25 D1 transfers, excuse me. 7 from the FBS, it should say FBS, and 18 from the FCS, which includes all the FCS conferences, not just the MEAC. They're projected to place 4th in the Kira Sports MEAC preview after they finished 4th last year. So take that how you will. The schedule opens up with Tosin, who's another FCS opponent. Then they play D2 Virginia State. The games have been competitive, so it's not necessarily like it's going to go from one end of a blowout to another, which it's weird. I've seen that happen with college football because of how relative things are. Like one team will play an FBS opponent, get washed, and then play like a D2 team and like dominate them the same way. It's like it's very like strange to think about, but with that being said, though, like these games have been competitive. Virginia State has I think won the one 2 years ago, and then this team won the one the year after. So I think that's a rivalry game of some sort. But then after that, they come to Rutgers. That's a big step up in competition, going from D2 an FCS to a Big Ten school, who's by the way an improved Big Ten school that is
After
probably
that,
going to
they're
have.
gonna
who's probably gonna have beaten these Ohio and Miami, Ohio team as well. So I mean, like, not even like a basement team like Rutgers, like we were talking about. So either way, though, I mean, like, still, you can't take anyone for granted. We saw what happened against Howard last year. They still managed to win that game 44-7. A little bit of a slow first half. Howard actually made some plays on offense, on defense too. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think the rust should be a factor. I think this year, after playing teams a step up like Ohio, Miami, Ohio, who are going to be a bit more of a challenge. I think Rutgers should have, the floodgates open right away. It's, the question of this game isn't are we going to win? It's how much are we going to win by? How long do the starters play? Stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, this isn't even like one of the top like FCS teams either. Like, I think this is going to be like a complete like walkover. But at the same time, like, Rutgers did get off to that a little bit of a concerning slow start. So I don't see that happening this year. If there's any game for that to happen, it might be Ohio. It's not going to be Norfolk. But I think Rutgers does run up the margin. They get to play their backups in the second half. So much needed rest for the Iowa game coming up on Friday, which is going to be, the whole fan base is already going to have their mind on that game, which is going to be very annoying, especially if we end up losing. But in the meantime, a lot of hype is going to be building. The team's going to get a little bit of a breather. Yeah, I mean, Rutgers big in this one. I mean, it could be 49-7, it could be 52-3. I don't know, but like, I mean,
this is the one game where if they're gonna blow somebody out, it's probably gonna be this game.
yeah,
I predict at least a 4-score victory. I don't think that's
yeah.
too unfair to say.
No, I think
Um,
yeah, that's probably this. Yeah, it's probably gonna be at least a four score victory.
Not you don't want to be walking through it, but I feel like at a certain point, Rutgers gonna get comfortable, be up so much, play their backups in. You don't want to ever just go into a game with a complete lackadaisical
Right.
attitude. But
Right.
I think what's going to end up happening is that Rutgers like storms them early, just like kind of like takes it over from there and puts their backups in and kind of, I don't want to say coasts, but like cruises to an easy
Yeah,
victory.
and the backups are probably gonna end up scoring at some point too. But yeah, I mean, it'll probably be like that. A relatively easy win for Rutgers. I mean, I've seen them against like the FCS, like it usually doesn't get too much more competitive than the Howard game, which in the first half and everything, and so
And
it's
Howard's
probably
not
gonna be
even
something.
FCS.
What?
Howard's not even FCS, are they?
They are, yeah. They're in the same
But
conference actually.
I
In
thought
the
he would. Oh, they are.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they're
I thought
the MEACs.
he was saying they were in the MAC.
Wait, Howard?
Yeah.
No, they're in the MEAC, I think.
Oh.
Might be what the confusion's coming from, but Norfolk State's also in the MEAC, so they're around the same level of opponent. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm interested to see how that goes with Michael Vick coaching them. I mean, he's all about speed, and there could be some changes. I mean, that's probably going to be the biggest storyline of the game, is having him coach that team against Greg Schiano's bunch. So I mean, yeah, obviously we know what he did in the NFL. So, but yeah, I mean, there's not really too much to say about this one. After Rutgers, really has to work hard for some of these wins against Ohio, Miami, Ohio, going to come out. Rutgers probably gonna have to wear them down and pull away in the second half. This one, Rutgers probably gonna take over right from the jump, and yeah, it's a coaster. But after the first 2 weeks of the season, I think, and especially before a big game like Iowa, I think it's placed at kind of the right time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good week to have that week of the season,
Speaking
because
of that Iowa game, though, um, speaking of that Iowa game, I'm talking about Friday night under the lights,
oh my
right?
God, this is gonna be the
Nothing better.
biggest
Black
gonna be the
Friday.
biggest game of the season right here. Like, do not miss this game. It's gonna be a blackout game under the lights.
Get in your seats early. Be
Yeah,
there. Be in your seat, sitting down. The game kicks off at 8, right?
8 p.m. Yes.
Yeah. Be in your seat by 7:40.
There's
We
also
want
gonna
to
be like
show
light
recruits
shows and stuff
across the
like that
country
then
that
as
we are a
well.
legitimate Big Ten program to be taken seriously with a legitimate Big Ten fan base. Wear black and be in your seats by 7:40. All I need to say.
Hmm.
But with that game, obviously Iowa has been curse for Rutgers for the past couple seasons.
Yeah.
Last season, Iowa went 8-5, 6-3 in the Big Ten, but lost to number 19 Missouri in the Music City Bowl, 27-24. Some notable wins that they had is that they beat Nebraska, who Rutgers lost to. They beat Minnesota, who Rutgers beat, and along with Washington.
Yeah.
However, they also lost to UCLA, Iowa State, and Michigan State,
Huh.
which
It's
Michigan
interesting.
State was not good last year. UCLA was also not good last year, but I guess they're kind of like in that frisky fun category because they
Yeah.
also
They
beat
also did.
Rutgers. So it's
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make much sense about who they lost to versus who they beat.
Yeah. Right.
A lot
Right.
of key returners for the Iowa, especially for the Iowa offense. Running back Kamari Moulton carried the ball 84 times for 473 yards and 3 touchdowns. Um, with the starter last season, going into the NFL, I can only expect that his carries are going to pick up. We know the type of ball that Iowa likes to play, so that's going to probably shoot up drastically. They're also returning their top wide receiver in Jacob Gill, who made 35 catches for 411 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't believe he was the top wide receiver last year. I think he was like about 1 or 2 down. But even still, for an Iowa offense that doesn't pass the ball much, he was a premier target. From the tight end group, they are returning Addison Ostrenga and Zach Otworth, who are expected to have a B role. We know Iowa likes to use those big bodies, big packages. Um, they're known for their tight ends. George Kittle came out of there. I expect them to have a big role. And on the defensive line, they return edge rusher Max Lewin, tackle Aaron Graves, and sack leader Ethan Herkett. A lot of production returning on that defensive line. We know Rutgers is going to want to run the ball, but it's not going to be easy running through this Iowa defensive front.
Right.
Um, I think this is probably the game where Rutgers is going to have to push the ball a little bit down the field to give themselves a little breathing room. But even Iowa's not even that bad in the backfield, or I guess the backfield, but in the secondary. So it's
Yeah.
going to be tough no matter what Rutgers tries to do. I think if they're going to pull out any sort of trickery, it has to be in this game.
Right.
This is the game that is circled in red, dotted on the calendar.
Oh my
Like
God.
this, like all the other games have like their own little spot, but this one circled in red, or I guess circled in black.
It's a black.
But
Yeah.
like that is the one where in September it's the biggest thing on the calendar.
Yeah.
This game could easily make or break Rutgers' season, and if Rutgers does beat Iowa on Friday night in front of national television, that could have profound effects, not just in the season record that they have, but in their recruiting, in their even just their image as a total university.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
football program. I mean, like you'll really put them on the map in the Big Ten, like taking them seriously. Like Iowa feels it's a weird spot because it's like compared to Minnesota and Washington, like you would think that the three of them are kind of on the same tier, and they in a lot of ways they kind of are. But Iowa's like a step above Rutgers and even Minnesota and Washington, surprisingly. So like if Rutgers can pull one of those that one out in front of their home crowd. I mean, like for the first time, by the way, they've never beaten them. They've never really come close to beating. I mean, one time the first game they lost 14-7 back in I think like 2017. Since then, not the closest. I mean, they lost a night game a few years ago, 27-10. A couple defensive scores, including one returned back by Cooper DeJean. There was the 2023 game where they lost 22-0 after Rutgers played a very competitive game against Ohio State the week before. So a little bit of a deflating loss there because they're 1.5 point dogs. Like it feels like Rutgers should and largely has kind of been in a similar class of like to Iowa, but a little bit below, where it kind of gives them problems because Iowa plays a lot of similar style of football as Rutgers, but it does it even better. And their defense is, the class of like college football. Special teams is very good. This year it might be a little different though, because I mean they bring in Mark Gronowski, who transfers in from South Dakota State. He's a real like quarterback. He could throw the ball. I mean, he had a 3,000-yard season. He won multiple FCS national championships. I mean, South Dakota State has been up there with North Dakota State. They've probably been better in the last few years. Like if you follow FCS ball, I mean, that's like premier program there, and he's been a big reason leading that charge. So I think that's going to transfer. He's probably going to be the best quarterback for not in Iowa history, but for a while for this Iowa program. And I think the passing offense is going to take a step up. I mean, the run game, they lose Caleb Johnson, their leading rusher, a Big Ten's leading rusher to the NFL. They made some transfers, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough one for Rutgers. Like I said, like probably 2-week hype period. But I mean, we'll see how this, especially the last 6 days of that is, excitement's going to be fever pitch, but I guess I really want to see a win. I don't want to see them, like go 3-0 again in the non-conference and start running up scores, and then against Iowa, like they fall apart, and it's just going to be deflating. But can they win the game? Like, I mean, I think for the first time, I mean, I think Iowa isn't going to just completely walk all over them, or as we've seen in the past, like pull away by like 17 points, 20, like they're not gonna. It's not going to be like that, I don't think. But I
They're
mean,
not going to run away with it, definitely.
I don't think I was running away with this one. I think Rutgers is matched. Both of these teams have good offenses for the first time, or like improved passing offenses. Their defenses are also going to still be strong. So, I don't know. Maybe we're expecting a mid-20s like type of game, like instead of the
I
usual.
have it in my head that Rutgers' offense improved a little bit more than Iowa's offense. So I think the real test is going to be Rutgers' offense versus Iowa's defense. The defense is going to be the strong suit for Iowa. We all know that. Like we all know what the what the strong suit of Iowa is. And on the flip side, the strong suit of Rutgers, I believe, at least the first 4 games of the season, is going to be the offense. So it's going to be interesting the way those two match up against each other. I'm a little bit worried about how our defensive line stacks up against their run game. That's what worries me a little bit. Do you understand that we have very rotation for the defensive line? I worry how that's going to stack up against each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I don't know how the lines are going to stack up against each other, or or the run games, like Rutgers versus Iowa. I mean, it's always like a really tough matchup for the Scarlet Knights. But like I said, I think like you said, like Iowa's, I think I think their run defense, or Iowa's defense as a whole, really against Rutgers' offense. That's going to be a big test to see where Rutgers really is on offense. I mean, that's they look to be an improved team on offense, but I mean, going against a team like that, they'll really be the ultimate test. And on the other side, can Iowa move the ball against Rutgers defense? I mean, that's also like an improved unit on both sides. I mean, Iowa's offense is improved. Rutgers defense should be pretty strong again, bringing in these transfers. So I mean, who's going to be able to win those contests on either side of the ball? Not entirely sure, but I mean, I think, can Rutgers move the ball on Iowa? Because I feel like they could potentially. I don't know how. I don't know how improved the Iowa pass offense is, but I feel like Rutgers, they should be able to hold their own on that side. I mean, if they can also be able to move the ball on offense, I think that's where the question mark really comes in. If they could neutralize the Iowa defense, they should have enough on their own defense, which has also been a strong point of the team to get the win, or at least to be able to hang around. But I don't know. Can they get over the hump? I feel like what might happen is they might close the gap per se, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to get to a win. But I don't know. I don't want to shed doubt on it. I'm gonna have to see how Iowa does in the Cy-Hawk game against Iowa State, who won their opener, a ranked opponent. How does Iowa look against? Because we're not going to get too much from UMass or Albany, So I mean, if Iowa falters to Iowa State, like there's probably a chance that Rutgers, could win that game. If Iowa beats Iowa State, and especially if they look good doing it, their passing offense looks ridiculous. Like, I think Rutgers might be in some trouble, but obviously I hope not. But I mean, I think that game's going to be a huge indication as where Iowa is. We should know where Rutgers is as well after our first 2 games too. I mean, decent opponents. So, but that Cy-Hawk game is going to be a must-watch for Rutgers fans. As much as possible to really understand where this Iowa team is. And after that, I think I'll have a better idea of making a prediction.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and make our predictions now. I believe that Rutgers at home, under the lights, big game, you know, biggest game of the season. Like
Yeah,
I said, circled in black. I
right.
think Rutgers takes this one, clips Iowa probably by 3 points, I would
Only
say,
three.
no more.
Yeah.
Maybe at most a touchdown, but I think it's going to be a battle right down to the end. I think the crowd is going to push Rutgers to victory, and I think they take it probably by 3 points, like I said.
Wow. Well, like game-winning field goal by like Jay Patel maybe or something like along those lines. Like,
That's all I'm saying. What do you
yeah,
think?
I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I just again, I think they'll close the gap against Iowa. I don't think they're gonna get walked over, but I think Iowa, like I think the improvement they made in the past game, I think is gonna kind of match where what Rutgers did, and then they'll probably have like a slight trench advantage too. So I don't know. I mean, I hate to be skeptical, but I hate even more to be optimistic to the point of fault and then get broken again. So like for the sake of doing that, I think Rutgers does close the gap this year. They lose by like maybe 6 or 7 because I don't want to say 3 because that's even more heartbreaking in my opinion. But they come close. They come a lot closer this year. They showed that they're for real, and I think that propels them to some wins later on. But for at this time, I'm gonna say Iowa wins, pending how they do against the Cyclones in 2 weeks.
All right. I guess I'll just have to prove you wrong then.
All right. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. And if they end up winning that game, like it's gonna be like a monumental program win because like I said, I was on a different tier than Rutgers and even Minnesota and Washington too. And if they could really get to Iowa and beat them, puts Rutgers on the map as like a team to take seriously in the Big Ten. So because Iowa is in the like middle, like they're kind of in that like second or third tier where they're like always kind of in the mix. And if Rutgers could get themselves there, then yeah, I mean that's another step forward in the whole state of the program. So, but on to Minnesota, their first road game of the year. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, last season Minnesota went 8-5 with a 5-4 record in the Big Ten. They beat Virginia Tech 24-10 in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. They beat USC, Illinois, and Virginia Tech, obviously, and then but lost to Penn State by 1 point. Lost to North Carolina in the opening of the season, and lost to Rutgers after Rutgers was coming off a 4-game losing streak. They were able to get it right and get everything back together against Minnesota, and eventually use that to springboard into a bowl game. Um, they're returning a lot of production on their defense, but starting with offense, they're returning running back Darius Taylor, who had 205 carries for 986 yards and 10 touchdowns, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. They were on the defensive side of the ball. They were returning defensive tackle Anthony Smith, who had 27 tackles, 6 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Also on the defensive side of the ball, they are returning DB Koi Peri, 46 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. Um, just some notes that happened during the offseason for the Golden Gophers. They are adding Drake Lindsay, a high upside redshirt freshman QB, to take over the starting job after
yeah,
Max Brosmer departed for the Minnesota Vikings. The secondary lost Justin Wally and Jack Henderson, but still has Puri. Um, Several new offensive linemen. They lose offensive tackle Philip Daniels to OSU. Strong running back room, like we mentioned before. They had a sneaky strong 2024. Could improve in 2025. Big second game for Rutgers in a 3-game swing. First road contest of the season. Revenge factor for Minnesota after losing at Rutgers is also something we wanted to mention. Um, there's a lot of familiarity between PJ Fleck and Ethan Kaliakmanis because Ethan did used to play for Minnesota. And to be honest with you, like we mentioned in our document here, I think this is going to probably be the easiest of the 3-game stretch that we have been calling the most pivotal 3-game stretch in the entire Rutgers football season for a long time now. I think this is the easiest game with the amount of turnover that they have on their new offensive line. I think and the fact that they have a redshirt quarterback. I think if there's any game where um, Bradley Weaver, Jordan Walker, and Eric O'Neill had a standout game, I think it's going to be this one. I think they're going to have not have their way, but I think they're going to have a very strong showing against the new offensive line for Minnesota, and I think they're going to get in this redshirt quarterback's head a little bit. He
Yeah.
does have, I mean, at this point, he is going to have a couple games under his belt, but he's still very young. Still, probably hasn't been rattled yet. This is probably going to be one of his first tests. Maybe not his first test, but one of his first tests against a power four opponent. I think this is where Rutgers can take advantage and really wreak some havoc for the Minnesota offense. And on defense, we talked about they are losing some production in the secondary, and Rutgers is only getting stronger in the wide receiver room. I think Rutgers does handle this one. I think it's probably going to be about a score, maybe a 10-point difference, but I think Rutgers takes care of business here.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Like, I think with the new quarterback Drake Lindsay stepping in, high upside retro freshman, but I mean without Max Brosmer, their running back looks good. Their defensive, they have Coy Parrish, Anthony Smith. They both look like solid players. I remember hearing good things about Parrish, but I mean, yeah, I think like we talked about. I think with all the the new players, I think this surprisingly is going to be the easiest game of the 3 games swing. I mean, Iowa, you know what you're getting out of them. It's always like feels like you're playing a team like like I said, it's like a step up. Like kind of like a everything has to go right game to like really be able to pull that one out. Minnesota's going to be more of an even matchup. Washington we'll talk about in a second. Very improved roster that I feel like might swing. Our predictions on that. But Minnesota, I think they do get a win. I think they're able to pull it out. Might be 7, might be 10, but I think they are able to get into their new quarterbacks had a little bit. I think they have the better lineup on both sides. Minnesota was an interesting team though. They beat Illinois. They almost lost to Penn State. They lost to Rutgers. They were like kind of like an
But
interesting.
they're also losing so much
Yeah, that
production.
was
So in
last.
my head, it's like, is that same team going to be what we see on that Saturday? I don't
Probably
think
not.
so.
Yeah, I guess given, the lack of continuity and all the transfers and the new quarterback versus Ethan Kagmanis going back to his old stadium and everything with this Rutgers team with all this, a lot more continuity versus Minnesota without it. I think Rutgers does get the win. A much needed win because it comes in this pivotal 3 game swing that we've been mentioning, which could be the difference between like 5 wins and 8 wins. So, but this one I'm the most confident out of the 3 opponents here that they are able to get a win. So in my predictions with the Iowa loss, they bounce back and they're at 4-1. Guess what? With you having them beat Iowa, they're now 5-0 heading into Washington.
Unfortunately, at least from my perspective, that 5-0 does get soiled out in the great state of Washington. Um, since Rutgers has to go all the way and travel to a much improved Husky team who last season beat UCLA, beat USC and Michigan. They
Yeah,
did lose to Washington State, Iowa, and Rutgers, but that
mm.
Rutgers game,
It was a weird
it
one.
was clear the
Mm.
Scarlet Knights were completely outplayed, but they
Just
got a couple
executed better.
lucky
Yeah.
breaks.
Well, that too. Washington missed field goals. They were penalized at like the worst times. They also didn't convert on 3rd down a lot. And even with all of that, like Washington still nearly like came back somehow and they missed a field goal. They kind of ran out of time, I feel like. But I mean, there was just a lot that went wrong for Washington. Statistically, in terms of yards and everything, they absolutely did dominate the game. They weren't able to execute. Rutgers was. And that isn't like a coincidence. I mean, Rutgers takes like every phase of the game extremely seriously, including special teams, including penalties, and including execution on offense and defense. And those things matter. But at the same time, Washington arguably was the better team. Rutgers kind of did luck out a little bit in terms of getting a win. But this year, Washington's roster, like you said, is like that much more talented. I mean, we could talk about like who they're bringing back and who they're adding, but I mean, in terms of bringing back Jonah Coleman, running back, he had over 1,000 yards. He was really good last year. Denzel Boston, their top receiver. They Kevin Green Jr., who I believe is coming back after an injury. Safety Cameron Fabiculanen, 54 tackles, 2 picks. 2 passes defended. Some returners, Javon Parker looks to be healthy. Ephesians Prysock, Mikel Esteen, and then their quarterback this year, Damon Williams, like he looks really good. Like he over in his last 2 starts, or his 2 starts of the season. Will Rogers was decent, he was solid, but I mean Williams was like an elite dual threat. He completed over 80% of passes in his 2 starts. They added size all over the defensive line, offensive line. They added playmakers in the secondary. They've added some receivers. I mean, like it's just they're like better in like every single position. And last year they weren't really bad. I mean, they were, like we mentioned, they outplayed Rutgers statistically. Rutgers executed better, but which is a big part of the game. But again, like they outplayed them statistically. This year their roster is like that much better, and it's a home game for the Huskies. So I mean, Rutgers is coming off a bye, but I feel like out of the three of those, we're saying Minnesota might be the easiest one. Like this one might be the hardest one. This Washington team looks very, very improved. A lot of people have them like, potentially as a sleeper to like compete in the Big Ten. Like, people are saying like, they get Ohio State. I mean, that could be like a tough one just because that's a tough place to play too. So, considering like all the improvements they made and the way the game went last year with, Washington, almost coming back, even despite all the mistakes, like, you improve a team that much and it's a home game. Like, I do feel like Washington wins. They might even win by like 10 points if we're being like completely honest with you.
I honestly think that Washington could run away with this game a little bit. The interesting thing that I did want to note, though, that it's going to apply for the Ohio State game and the Washington game is that Rutgers has a bye week
Yeah,
before
that's
both
true.
of those games. So why I think that there's a sliver of a chance that Rutgers goes into Washington and pulls this off is that Rutgers can specifically design a lot more for their game against Washington,
True.
and probably throw some tricks at them. You have a bye week. That's what bye weeks are for. Bye weeks are for, throwing something at Washington that they're not quite expecting. I think if Rutgers is able to do that successfully, they're going to have a chance to pull off a win. I'm not going to give them, a guarantee like, oh, this is going to be a win. In fact, I think that Washington probably handles this thing by about 10 points. So for the first 5 games, Rutgers is 5-1 in my opinion.
I guess with them slipping to Iowa, like, for me they're 4-2, but it's still a strong record coming out of the stretch. I don't know if I'm going to flip flop on the Iowa pick. Like I said, I have to see the Cyhawk before I were to make up my mind on that. But yeah, I mean, in this one they're 4-2. I think Washington, although Iowa might be like a heartbreaker, a very close one, I think Washington is significantly better. They've improved on offense. They've improved on defense. It's a home game. It's going to be a tough environment. I think Washington last year they outplayed Rutgers. This year they're gonna outplay them a bit more, and it's gonna be tough. But Washington gets the win. But that sets up the stage for homecoming because Rutgers returns to the East Coast to play Oregon for the first time I think in program history. Oregon now the first big dog of the schedule, the first of the top 3, the big 3 on the schedule. So taking another jump up in competition here. I mean, just, they had a really good season last year. They were 13-1. Their one loss was to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. They beat them in the regular season. They beat Penn State, won the Big Ten championship as a newcomer in the league. I mean, they returned some players. They've lost some. I mean, they returned Noah Whittington, who had 540 rushing yards. Evan Stewart, 48 catches, 613 yards. Mateo Uagule, it's a familiar name, college football, 38 tackles, 10.5 sacks. Dante Moore taking over at quarterback. He had 1610 yards at UCLA. He redshirted behind Dylan Gabriel last season. And then Makai Hughes coming in from Tulane in the backfield with Whittington. A lot of new receivers. A lot of new receivers. And with their 24, Tez Johnson, guys like that, they went to the NFL. Their tight end, a few other players went to the NFL too. And then their defense adds Dylan Dynaman from Purdue, who is really, really good. He just played for a bad team, but I mean, he's a really good safety, won Big Ten Freshman of the Year in 2023. with 6 interceptions. So I mean, a very still good Oregon team. I expect them to take a slight step back from where they were last year. But they're still going to be like a very good team. Still going to be among the top contenders in the conference. Still going to have a really good. They're probably, unless given they might have one loss with the Penn State whiteout game. It's going to be a tough one, but I mean, other than that, they should be undefeated. Rutgers has brought in a lot of juice for this. It's a homecoming game. It's always a big one for Rutgers. It's a night game, which is also always a big one for Rutgers. You're putting the two of them together now, so I mean, they're really trying to like, as it is like homecoming, they usually have like 12-3:30. It's still a big game. They're adding extra juice for a matchup like Oregon, so it's going to be interesting to see how they do. But first big test for the Knights against the top team, probably a top 10 team. They're 7th in the preseason AP poll right now. So yeah, I mean, like, how do you see this game going though?
Well, first of all, if Rutgers was going to upset a top 10, top 12 team this season, I think this is the team they're going to upset. Having said
Yeah,
that, this is still a top 12 team. Personally, I'm not gonna be one of those. I'm not gonna be like a complete homer where it's like we're gonna get one this season. I want to be. Don't get me wrong, because I
yeah,
really think that we're long overdue for a win like
I think
that.
we are. I mean,
But from an official
probably,
prediction standpoint, I think Oregon's probably going to win this by 2 scores or more.
yeah,
Um, Unfortunate because it's on homecoming. It's at night. It's going to
yeah,
be on national TV.
yeah,
I think Oregon's going to handle business here. I think we're going to be looking at looking down the barrel at Purdue,
right.
probably with an entire quarter to play. We're just going to be already looking at Purdue.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those games that are like over before they're over, and it's just like like yeah, but it used to be every game for Rutgers back in the day. So, every Big Ten game at least, maybe not
Yeah.
the other ones, but yeah, every Big Ten game, at least most of them. There's a lot of those that are over before it's over. It might be this one too. I think Rutgers. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a game where Rutgers does compete. I think this one might play out a little bit like how Ohio State did in 2023, where Rutgers really, I don't know if they're going to be up at the half again, but I mean, I think they are going to be in the game. It's going to be a little bit of a track meet type of game against Oregon.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say. Like, we're gonna be in the game. That's why I didn't. That's why I said we're gonna be looking. We're gonna be looking to Purdue at the end of the third quarter,
Uh,
not at the end of the second half, not at the end of the first
not,
half. I mean,
yeah, not at the end of the
um,
first quarter. That would be horrible. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think they will be in the game. I think Oregon just has too much. They always have like that high flying West Coast type style offense. Like I think Rutgers isn't going to be able to quite keep up with that, especially considering Oregon also has a solid defense this year too. So yeah, I mean, 14-point win or so, maybe a little bit more. It's like the inverse of like our MAC games here, kind of. Where Rutgers is like that feisty underdog team, but instead of the other way around. But yeah, I think Oregon does get the win. Um, you know, um, so I guess they're 4-3 in mine, 5-2 in yours, and then they're looking ahead at Purdue. But it could change quickly because Purdue, a lot of transfers this year, but they were 1-11 last year in the Big Ten. This year, I don't know how much better they're going to be, but I mean, they're not bringing back a lot. I mean, a few players, Kydran Jenkins, 83 tackles, 7 sacks. They're running back really good. Devin Mockabee, who had, I think he's led the team in rushing like past 3 seasons, like 687 rushing yards. And then a couple of receivers, defensive linemen, but over 40 transfers coming into the program. I think Ryan Brown got the starting quarterback nod since in the meantime with the games against Ball State Saturday. 5 new O-line starters. They lost tight end Max Clare to Ohio State. They bring in a few different defensive transfers. Some of the biggest ones are TJ Lindsey and CJ Nunnally. It's just really hard to know like how good they will be, but I think they will be improved from last season. I think they get off to a 2-0 start off the gate. I mean, they play Ball State, they play Indiana State, I think, or another SES opponent like that. Illinois State. Yeah, but after that, I mean, it's gonna be tough sledding. I think Rutgers does get this game. If they need one and they get one,
I think they take this one easily. I
yeah,
mean,
I think it's relatively comfortable, too. I mean, they might win by like like 14 to 17 points, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. So I think it's yeah, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a complete like walkover because I mean, even with the MAC games, we're not even saying that. So like I don't think Purdue's gonna be like that, but I think Rutgers just gets separation. They're just they should be the better team on both sides of the ball. Like it should be pretty clear. So I mean, I think yeah, I mean, even with all the new transfers, I think Rutgers is going to be the better team, but Purdue could steal a couple Big Ten games at some point this season. I think Rutgers should be able to win this one. It might be a little bit of a gutsy type win, but it's probably going to be like a 10-point win, maybe even 14 to 17. It could be 14 to 17.
honestly, I'm gonna give this like a 2 touchdown win. Um, I understand that Purdue is much improved from last season, but also, and if you ask most college football analysis, this Rutgers team is better than last season. That's not going to reflect on their
Right,
record, I
right.
don't think, but this team is better.
Yes,
So
roster-wise, yes.
yeah, so I will say I think we're going to handle business against Purdue. I think it's going to be a multi-touchdown game, probably about 2 touchdowns if I had to make an official prediction. It's not like it's a quick turnaround week either. It's not like they're going to the other side of the country. They
Right.
do go on the road, but it's not, it's not ridiculous. It's not like
Yeah.
an insane turnaround that
It's not
I think.
entirely difficult, like home environment either. Like it should be overwhelming. Like I think Rutgers has had a good history. Like a lot of things point in the Scarlet Knights' favor, but especially roster wise, like yeah, I think they should be able to win this game. I think if they don't, it's going to be a big problem. For the
Yeah,
it's like if they lose one of the MAC games, like it's like it's going to be a big
that's a big uh-oh,
yeah,
But
exactly. Like I don't think they
that's where the
will.
fans are like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I think with the way how bad Purdue was last season, I just don't think they'll, with Rutgers
And
bringing
it's
back
not
all this
even it's not
continuity.
even the fact that like they went 1-11. It's the fact that they were just outright dominated in most games that they played. Other than
Yeah,
the Illinois game, I'll give them the Illinois game, but
right,
you
right.
know, it was the fact that they were just outright dominated.
Yeah, dominated by Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State. Like any team in the Big Ten with a pulse, like dominated them. The bad teams even like beat
Besides
them.
Illinois, because Illinois
Yeah, that
went to
was
overtime.
a weird one, but I don't think that's going to be like that. But I do think Rutgers is going to be able to win comfortably. It might even be like 34-17, 34-14, like 31-14. Like it could be something like that because I just think Rutgers, yeah, on both sides of the ball should be better. There's a lot more continuity. Rutgers also on the defensive side brings in their own transfers. Like it's going to be hard to see Purdue go from that to like the Indiana like type turnaround that they had in one season and become, you know what I mean? I just
I
don't see
agree.
that. I think Rutgers pulls this one out. And in my prediction, they are now 5-3. So one more win for bowl eligibility. I guess for you, since they beat Iowa and yours, they already have bowl eligibility. This is a clincher on the road at Purdue. So yeah, I mean they're
Game I'll
looking
be
at
there for.
right.
Like
Yeah, you will be going to that too.
right, if I'm right, I get to watch them clinch ball eligibility.
Oh, that's nice. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll be watching that one. I'll be watching every game this year, obviously. But yeah, I'll be following along. So hopefully they do clinch bowl eligibility in this, and we'll see. It really all depends on that 3 game swing over there that we already talked about. But at this
Mhm.
point, they're going to be going into November. You have them at 6-2, I think, or
Six
something
and
like
two.
yeah, and then I have them 5-3. So then now the schedule gets harder for this last month of the season.
It gets much harder.
Much
So
harder. Not
starting
just
off with this brutal 4 game slate that they have right here,
yeah, not just a
they
little
get
harder, a lot harder.
they get to play 3 top 12 preseason teams in a 4 game stretch. Isn't that just lovely? Um, Starting off with Illinois. Illinois last season went 10-3 with a 6-3 record in Big Ten play. Beat number 15 South Carolina 21-17 in the Citrus Bowl. They beat Michigan, Kansas, Nebraska, and Rutgers. They lost to Oregon, Penn State, and Minnesota. I mean, Oregon and Penn State, those are like very excusable losses. Those are the
Yeah,
two
those are like
like class
right.
of the conference. Minnesota's a little bit of a question mark, but then again, they weren't
They
bad
had their
either.
like I said, they had their moments last year. They were like probably better than they you know what I mean? Like a lot of people that was a weird time for like Rutgers was coming off their 4 game losing skin and they turned it around in that bye week and then Minnesota I think was coming off 4 straight. I think they came very close to beating that Penn State team last year. which would have put like a huge dent in their season. They beat Illinois, so Minnesota was like I think better than like they gave out in that Rutgers game, in my opinion. They were, but this year I think that won't really be the case. But anyway, like going back to the Illini, I mean, I think this team's also another team that could be even better than they were last year too. I mean, they bring back so many, they bring back a lot of production. Luke Altmaier, who had a terrific season, over 2007, 2,700 yards. Josh McCray and Aiden Lawfrey, their running back duo. I think their top guy went to the NFL, but they bring back two other good ones. Linebacker Gabe Jackas, 74 tackles, 8 sacks. He was like an absolute beast. Xavier Scott and Matthew Bailey, both really good. Scott had 4 picks, 6 passes defended or PBUs. Bailey had 93 tackles. They lost their top 2 receivers to the NFL, but their next guys are going to be guys that step up. They added Hudson Clement. They have Hank Beatty, Colin Dixon, Tanner Adkin, their tight end. They added depth to the D line, which is a little bit of a scary sight, including a couple Wisconsin transfers. James Thompson coming in from the Badgers. He missed 2024 with injury. He had 19 tackles and 3 sacks. And then I mean the Illini. This could be a college football playoff dark horse. I mean it will be at the very least. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. But last year, Rutgers lost a heartbreaker, a game that they arguably should have won. A couple questionable calls by an ice to kicker moment by Greg Schiano, and that gave Illinois a second chance to put their offense on the field. And then on that play, Rutgers showed a blitz, and Illinois took advantage of that too. So it was just a really bad finish. Rutgers probably had that game won. It was an exciting one, and it would have been a top 25 win. So I don't know. I mean, can Rutgers, go into Illinois and exact revenge? I think it's going to be harder. It's going to be in Champaign. Illinois has bigger aspirations this year. I think after narrowly missing out last year, I think the team's going to be better this year. I don't think it should be like the way it was last year, but I don't know. Rutgers will have the confidence. Like, do you think this game? How do you think this game plays out? Close, not close? Does Rutgers have a chance of pulling this one out? Or
I think Rutgers pulls this one close, but Illinois handles business. If Rutgers was going to make a ranked upset this season, not a top 12 one, but a ranked upset this season, I think it comes against Illinois.
yeah,
With that being said, you got to give respect to the ranking. You got to give respect for what they did last year. I think Illinois probably handles this one. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be, I think it might even be the margin that they had last year.
like a 7-point type
Yeah,
win.
I think this game's going to be a fight to the finish. I want to say, but Illinois does pull out a 7-point victory.
Yeah, I think something similar. I think Rutgers is going to hang in this game. I think they have the horses, but Illinois is just going to be really good. I think it's probably going to be like maybe a 7 to 10 point win, where Illinois like tacks on a late score, maybe even 14. But I think it's probably going to be more like I'm seeing something like Illinois 34, Rutgers 24, or Illinois 31, Rutgers 21, like something like that, where Illinois tacks on like an extra field goal to pad it, something like that. But Rutgers is competitive. I don't know. I think Illinois has their eyes set on bigger things this year. I'm very, very high on them. They have a very favorable schedule. Their one loss might, probably will be to Ohio State, but other than that, they don't really have. I mean, they have Indiana. Their game against Indiana is going to be a huge, huge swing game for them. Duke as well on the road. Those are games that Illinois still probably will be favored in, but has the potential of losing. Other than that, I don't really see it. So they might be a 10-2 team. They at the very worst, I think, will be a 9-3 team. Maybe there's some sort of slip up somewhere. That they also play USC for homecoming. There might be a slip up somewhere. I don't think it comes against Rutgers. I do think they should at least be in the conversation. It depends on how they do in those swing games. That can go either way. But I don't know. I find it hard to believe that they were to finish worse than 9-3. So with that being said, I do think they take down Rutgers, and like they're kind of in the same boat like where South Carolina is. They're right on that bubble of like making the playoff or missing it. I think at the very least they're going to be in serious contention for something like that, if not sneak into the playoffs. So we'll see how they do, but I think they have a win over the Scarlet Knights, a competitive one, but they do win. I guess now they're 5-4 in mine and 6-3 in yours, but then the week after they take on the Maryland Terrapins.
And that's a game that shouldn't be swinging back and forth.
Nope.
Maryland went went 4-8 last season with a 1-8 record in Big Ten play. They did beat Virginia and USC, but they lost. They had some baffling losses to Michigan State,
Yeah, it's
Northwestern,
really bad losses.
and Rutgers, which isn't so much of a baffling loss.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
last
Northwestern
season,
was. I mean,
quarterback.
they got dominated by Northwestern, like 37-10 or something like that. It was like really bad. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that is pretty bad. But last season, quarterback. There was a. I mean, not last season. Right now there is a quarterback battle between Malik Washington and Justin Martin. They lost quarterback Billy Edwards and top running back Roman Hemby to the transfer portal. They lost top wide receivers Ty Felton and Caden Prather to the draft. They lost a leading tackler
that's what I'm saying. Like they
to
lost
the,
so
to the draft in Ruben Hippolyte, as well as defensive lineman Jordan Phillips and safety Deontay Trader.
okay.
Uh, some key returners are Nolan Gray, linebackers Daniel Wingate and Michael Harris, and defensive back Jalen Husky and Lavian Scruggs. And they added Jameer Glasker and Dante Joyner in the transfer portal. They added Ratrell Perry at offensive tackle. Decent starting, which makes like they have a decent starting offensive line, but they have no depth either.
Right.
So at
Yeah,
this point of the season, what are the odds that everybody's healthy? It's just
that's
not
true.
feasible. The defense was somehow worse than the offense, allowing
I don't know how that's possible, but like, okay.
it's okay.
Yeah, allowing over 30 a game, which is just like their pass rush was basically like nowhere to be found. It just like really concerns me for Maryland. Like where like I know they got some decent transfers at receiver. It's just like where are these? Where like where are the players going to come from? That's going to change all this. They were bad last year. They lost
They did
almost
recruit
every.
two
They,
5 stars, if you believe that, but
they
they're probably
did.
going to be immediate starters.
Yeah, but it's just like a team that wasn't that great. They lost so many of their their quarterback. I mean, the Malik Washington I heard is really really good at quarter. He's like one of the top recruits at quarterback in the country. But this is first year. Justin Martin, the UCLA transfer, might have the starting nod. I'm not entirely sure. They lose their running back Roman
Just
Hemby
not
to
good.
Indiana. Their top two receivers, some of their best players on the defense. It's just like I don't know. I just don't know how they're gonna get better. And like it just I mean, decent transfers come in, but even if they do get better, like I just don't think they're gonna be that great. Like I mean, they're they have an easier schedule, which is like a saving grace for them this year. No Penn State, Ohio State, or Oregon, so they get the Rutgers 2024 schedule, something similar to that. That may have them in a mix for a bowl game. They have, the typical non-conference start for Big Ten teams where, they will be favored in the first three. Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and that might be like an upset watch type game too because of what happened last year. Towson, they should be able to win that. After that, I mean, there are winnable games. It's like UCLA. I mean, they do have, they have Rutgers, although, we're going to obviously project that as a win. They have Michigan State. I mean, they have enough winnable games. I just don't see I don't see how this team gets better, and even if they do, I think Rutgers has much more continuity. I mean,
Their record might be better, but their team itself is
their
not
team
going
is
to be.
their team is not. Yeah, their record might be slightly better, but I don't even know if it will be. I mean, I just don't. I have a hard time seeing how they're going to find wins in the Big Ten. They might be able to get a couple of them and improve on the record, but it's just not a good Maryland team. And like I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something, but I really don't think so. I think even if they do somehow make those improvements, Rutgers has a lot, more continuity. They're going to be better on both sides of the ball. I could see something similar to how it played out last year with Rutgers winning like 34-17 or
You
like
also got to
around that
factor in that they're coming to us. We're not going down there. They're coming to us.
Yeah.
And as I've said for the 100th time, that nobody seems to be bringing more attention to is that Coach Loxley admitted that he lost his locker room. You want to know what happened when Chris Ash lost his locker room? He got fired.
Right.
Like that is, to me, as soon as he said that, he should have been canned. Like, you cannot lose the locker room. That's it. You need to have players believing in you. You need to have players. And as soon as he admitted, yeah, I lost the locker room. If I was the AD, goodbye. Like that to me is like the fact that he still has a job is completely baffling because he
Yeah,
admitted
that's
to
alright, yeah.
losing the locker room. He admitted to it. That is something that is immediately a fireable offense. This I don't think that things are going to improve this season. I think the 5 stars maybe push them to one extra win. It's not going to come against Rutgers though. Rutgers wins it. I'm going to give it like a two touchdown spread.
I think Rutgers wins by 2 scores as well. Last year Rutgers won by 31 to 17. It might be similar. I don't know. I mean, I would go as far to say they might win by like 34 to 17, something like that. Like this could be up there with Purdue for like easiest Big Ten win of the season. It might be even like I would be I wouldn't be surprised if the Purdue game is more competitive than this one. Like I really think I just don't see it with Maryland. Like losing that many of their players, like that off a team that was this bad last year. Like I just, and then what you said about Loxley in the locker room, like I don't know, man. Like I mean, I just feel like it's gonna be, yeah. I mean, I think they will be able to pull off some sort of Big Ten wins at some point in the season. They might win two and improve on their record.
They might pull off a win against Michigan State. They might
Yeah,
pull off a win against. I don't know if
UCLA
they have like
maybe.
Northwestern. I don't know. I don't know their schedule like the back of my hand. If they
Yeah,
have like a Northwestern, if they have a Purdue, I wouldn't be surprised there.
right.
But other than that, I
Yeah.
just don't see it.
Yeah, maybe UCLA could be Michigan State. They'll probably have a surpriser, but I don't know. They might they might still, even with the soft schedule, fall short of bowl eligibility, or they might make it. I don't know,
Oh,
but
I don't think they're making a
I don't
bowl.
think
I
I
think
think
they might
they'll end
meet
up with
them.
like five. Like they might win UCLA and Michigan State, but other than that, it's going to be tough sledding in the Big Ten. I mean, Nebraska's improved, Washington's improved. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it unless like I'm missing something about this team. Like
And then
it's
you have
just
to go
gonna
on
be
the road to play an improved Rutgers team. I just don't
exact.
see it.
I don't see a win there. I mean, yeah, like Rutgers snapped their skid. They won last year. They clinched bowl eligibility. Like this Maryland team is probably going to be even worse than last year. So for that reason, I think Rutgers is able to get the dub,
Mm-hmm.
extend the streak to 2 against the Terps, and in my prediction, this is where they become bowl eligible. So, and take that how you will. It should be a good one. 6-4 for me, 7-3 for you. But then the schedule, they have a bye week, and then their schedule gets like enormously tough. One of the toughest 2-game endings. I don't even know if any other team plays this tough of a last month, or especially the last 2 weeks. I mean, starting with the defending national champs in Columbus, you have Ohio State, number 3 in the AP poll. By the way, cannot wait for Texas, Ohio State this weekend. But yeah, and they won the national championship. They lost to Michigan, but they won. They ran through the playoffs. I mean, they beat Oregon. Oh, they beat Tennessee. They beat Oregon. They beat Texas, Notre Dame. They lost to Michigan, Oregon during the regular season, but a lot of turnover. I mean, Julian Sayin is the starting quarterback. That's been officially announced. So I mean, we'll see how that goes now. I mean, Texas big game, Arch Manning. I mean, a lot of new players all over the place. I mean, but they will be returning their key guys at receiver. Jeremiah Smith, who had 13, 15 yards, 15 touchdowns. Cornell Tate, Brendan Ennis too. I think is going to play a bigger role. They call that receiving room zone 6 out there. Linebacker Sonny Styles, safety Caleb Downs, who's one of the best defensive players in the nation. Um, Cornerback Davison Igmanosin, who's the brother of Rutgers' Desmond Igmanosin. So that's an interesting family note there. But he used to Davison, I think, played for Ole Miss. He's been a staple of that secondary. A lot of new players, though. I mean, they lost almost their entire starting defense to the draft. They lost Jack Sawyer,
Won't
JT
matter.
Hollowell. Yeah, their whole D line, Tyleek Williams, Ty Hamilton. I mean, they're back 7. I mean, pretty much almost everyone. Cody Simon, Lathan Ransom, Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock. I mean, this whole defense is in the league. That
It won't
defense,
matter.
yeah, it won't matter because they bring so many new people in on offense, as well, making some changes. Quarterback. What worries me is a little bit with them, the running backs. I don't know how good entirely they will be, but I'm sure they're still going to be pretty good. James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson. How well do they do following Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins? Remains to be seen. But I'm sure if for them to be starting at Ohio State are going to be pretty good ones. The offensive line adding some of these starters, some returners, some of these starters. The D line, I think, is going to be completely new. Max Clare comes in from Purdue. Ohio transfer, Will Kakmarek's their backup. I think Clare in particular is going to be, I think he's going to have a role in this offense. I think he's too good not to. So, I mean, watch out for that. but yeah, I mean, a lot of turnover. But I mean, these guys, like, on the depth chart, like, obviously, I don't think we really know them because we don't follow the team all like that. There's still like 4-star, 5-star prospects that have waited their turn behind these guys for 3-4 years, and they've probably seen some time as reserves. They're those guys are ready. Guys like Will McDonald and Kanan Curry, like these guys are going to be the next. Probably next NFL players on that team. There's still an elite defensive front. I mean, nobody could get into the end zone against last year's group. I mean, like literally nobody. Texas, Penn State, you name it. I mean, their run defense was insane. The offense is a lot of fun with Ohio State, which is why I have an affinity a little bit towards them. But yeah, I mean, in terms of how Rutgers goes, I mean, yeah, a lot of turnover at this point of the season. They should have everything figured out. Last time Rutgers played them, it was a 35-6 win for the Buckeyes. Rutgers had a 9-7 lead at the half. This time it's in Columbus. It's going to be a tough road environment. I mean, Ohio State's going to play tougher games than this one. I mean, they maybe lose to Penn State. I don't think so. They might lose to Texas too. Michigan's going to come up. That's always a trap for them. But Rutgers, I think they are going to be able to take care of business. I could be like a 2-3, probably like a 3-score win. Like it could be like 35-14. It could be 35-17. I don't know. I think Rutgers is going to continue to show their competitiveness and their improvement as they did in 23. I think they're a better team than they even were in 23, and they were pretty competitive then in the first half. But Ohio State's just going to be too much. I mean, their D line is going to still be it's off. They're I mean, on offense, I mean, you guys, Jeremiah Smith's going to be getting the ball. They're going to be scoring on the defensive line. I mean, they have like they're going to be getting to Cali McManus, especially in a home environment. So you might not know all the faces on that defense now. You'll definitely know them by the end of the season. It's still the Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus. Like I think Rutgers does unfortunately lose this game by a significant margin.
Yeah, I think this is probably a 3-touchdown game, maybe. Rutgers will score. Got to give
Yeah.
them that. Rutgers will score, but I don't know if it's going to be a lot, but they will score something. But I can't imagine it's going to be closer than 3 touchdowns. Ohio
Yeah.
State takes this win. In my book, Rutgers is now 7-4. Yours, they are 6-5.
6-5, yes. Yeah, I can't see them losing to Ohio State. I mean, I can't see them losing to. Well, at least they will have the wins over, the other Ohio teams this year, likely, like Ohio and Miami, Ohio. But Ohio State's a different beast, and Ohio's gonna find that out themselves too when they go to the shoe. So we're, the rest
This
of the
is going
Big
to be
Ten's
the
gonna.
Ohio's revenge game against Rutgers, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're gonna be like, you guys like, beat up on the Macathon.
You're picking up my little brothers.
Yeah, our good little brothers too. Not even the bad ones, but we're like a different beast altogether. So yeah, Ohio State's just like, but I mean, I don't know. The question for Ohio State isn't Rutgers. It's Michigan, it's Penn State, it's Texas. They still might come out of that with at least one win, if not more. But Rutgers, yeah, I don't think they're really on that level where they're going to really threaten. I think for Ohio State, detractors like your best bets are Texas when the team's fresh. Michigan seems to have a number. Penn State's supposed to be really, really good this year. We'll get to them in just a second. Rutgers, Ohio State probably still finds a way to beat Penn State because they have been. The other two is up in the air as of now, but against Rutgers, I think they end up, yeah. I mean, those 3 games, Ohio State probably, could lose a couple of them potentially. They might not. But against Rutgers, I think Ohio State does get a win and pretty comfortably. But that leaves us with the Nittany Lions the next week.
I was going to say, speaking of Penn State, in the last game of the season, first of all, number 2 Penn State in the preseason poll.
Yeah.
Last season, they lost in the Big Ten Championship to Oregon and lost in the Orange Bowl to Notre Dame, the eventual national championship runner-ups. They beat Illinois, SMU, Boise State. Yeah, that's not a very great resume, beating those teams.
Right.
But, it's not nothing. There aren't slouches.
Yeah, they're all playoff teams. I mean, Boise State with Genty was, the best group of 5 in the country. I mean, SMU is very good. Illinois, obviously, we just talked about them and where they might be this season too. So, yeah, those aren't like nothing wins, but I mean, I obviously the knock with them is like the big game stuff and like, but they were decently competitive in their losses too, but that's a whole different conversation that we could have about Penn State and the big games. This season it might be different though because their roster is absolutely stacked and loaded. It might get them over the hump, but I mean, they're returning. I think what they're returning compared to like a lot of these other big teams. We talked about all the turnover that Ohio State has. Penn State brings back nearly everybody. They bring back Drew Aller. Obviously, we know what he could do: 24 touchdowns to 8 picks, over 3,000 yards, and a season that got extended. He took them to the CFP semifinals. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, one of the best running back duos in the nation. I think they are the best running back duo in the country. Allen had over 1,100 yards, and Nick Singleton literally had 1 yard shy. There on less carries, by the way. He had 1099 compared to 1108 on about 50 less carries. So both of them are like elite backs that, really good 1-2 punch. On defense, they bring guys back like Dennis Sutton, so many other people too, like Tony Rojas. Their secondary brings back Zakee Wheatley, Zane Durant, a defensive lineman. I mean, they bring back a lot. That defense for Penn State's always been very fearsome. They bring back a lot of those players. They bring back their quarterback and their running backs. Their offensive line is supposed to be pretty good. They do lose Abdul Carter, who's now on the Giants. Tyler Warren's now on the Colts. So I guess for us, some familiarity there. Some of their best players, but other than that, they, like I said, they bring back Danny Sutton, Durant, Rojas, Wheatley, AJ Harris. Oh, they bring in Amari Campbell from UNC to play linebacker. So that must mean he's pretty good because Penn State's like linebacker university. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, though, I mean, Jim Knowles is coming in from Ohio State to coach this defensive unit, which I think could push them potentially over the top. But I think the biggest thing is their improved wide receivers, because that's always held them back in these big games, and also just in general, they haven't really lived up to the rest of the team. They're probably still pretty good receivers, but they're not really like at that level. Like one of them got their lunch taken away from them against Ohio State, and like it's just embarrassing in my opinion. But this year they have like, yeah, I mean,
I
like,
like how you worded that. That was funny.
yeah, like you just can't have things like that. Like you're playing a good game and then Ohio State just rips the ball out of your hands. Like, I mean, it's just unacceptable. Like, for a team like Penn State to have that receiver when you have just about everything everywhere else is just, it's disappointment. Like, I feel like that should be said. But at the same time, that's why they went into the portal and they got guys like Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, Trebor Pena, some guys who really proved, had big production at their previous schools. Kyron Hudson coming in from USC, Devontae Ross from Troy, Trebor Pena from Syracuse, who had a big season. So, I mean, all three of those guys, I think, were close to 1,000-yard receivers. I think one's an outside guy, or two outside guys, one inside guy. So they basically revamped their entire receiving core in the portal. So receivers shouldn't hold them back this year. The rest of their team is just over the top good. Obviously, they lose Warren, they lose Carter. Other than that, I mean, they have a really good defense that could be even better this year. They have a quarterback and a running back duo that is top of the country. They're bringing back continuity in spots where a lot of even the other best teams in the country don't have that. And that's why people are so high on Clemson and Penn State, because that's something that separates them from other contenders. Now, the question is, can they win like the big games? We talked about Ohio State. Can they beat teams like Ohio State, like Oregon? We'll find out. But I mean, this is going to be the season finale. Even if Penn State, I think they do end up winning the whiteout against Oregon this year. They might lose the game against Ohio State because it's hard for a team to go undefeated, even a good one against similar quality opponents. But coming into the Rutgers game, I mean, I think they're gonna, again, like Ohio State, they're probably gonna be favored by about 2.5 to 3 touchdowns. They're probably gonna win by that margin. But I think Rutgers, for once, isn't going to be like a complete doormat in this game. Rutgers has often struggled, even more than against Ohio State, to struggle even like as much as 10 points in this game. Rutgers has really not done that, like other than a couple times, and Penn State's ran it up in a big way. That I don't think happens. I think Rutgers keeps it relatively respectable this time. I think a 3-score margin is about right. Obviously, it's going to be a heated environment. Rutgers fans are gonna, definitely enjoy that one. It's going to be senior day, but I think Penn State quiets the crowd. I think it's about a 3-score margin. Like, it's a home game. I think it's a similar type of game to Ohio State, but I think for the first time Rutgers does start scoring a little bit. They probably put like 14 to 17 on the board against the Nittany Lions and hold Penn State around 40. I don't really think Penn State gets into like the 50s or anything like humiliating. It might be like 38-17. Like I'm seeing something along those lines.
Yeah. Sorry, one of our writers is having a little bit of trouble accessing our new WordPress.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State is gonna walk away with this one. I mean,
Yeah,
like, I think maybe they come in a little lackadaisical. Rutgers surprises them with an early touchdown, and then Penn State blows them out from there.
yeah.
Um,
It
there's
feels
too
like
much
same old,
production,
but
too much
yeah,
talent, too much. It's
too much
not going to be
everything.
close. It's probably going to be a
Yeah,
2 touchdown game at the very least.
I believe
Penn State
so.
handled this one, and in my prediction, Rutgers finishes the season 7-5.
Yeah, in mine they're 6-6. A little disappointing. Could be a scare. I mean, Rutgers could potentially get an early touchdown, as sometimes they have done in the past against these teams. I don't know. I mean, yeah, they could do that. I think Penn State's gonna, you know, um, cruise the rest of the way, or pull away significantly. I don't think it's going to be as humiliating as it was a few years ago, where it was 55-10, and pretty much all the fans left that game. I don't think it's going to get quite out of hand like that. I think Rutgers has a little bit more offense they'll show in this game. But as improved as Rutgers has been, like Penn State's made those improvements too, so that differential is gonna show out. It might look similar to how it has. It's probably going to be a little bit closer because Rutgers has improved, but Penn State's also going to be really good this year. They're going to be looking at the playoff. Yeah, I mean, like there's questions as to how they do in these bigger games. So against the Scarlet Knights, like, yeah, I mean, Rutgers is going to show some improvements, but Penn State's going to be the better team by a significant margin. So Rutgers takes a second consecutive tough loss by at least 2 scores, likely 3 scores, probably around that much. I would say. I think Rutgers just put points on the board this time, makes it look respectable. But the Nittany Lions do have their way in Piscataway to end the year, and like you said, in your prediction, they're 7-5. Mine, they're 6-6. They're going to a bowl game. I guess the final thing that we wanted to do in this episode was predict the bowl destination, or yeah, bowl I guess destination and opponent to conclude this.
I don't necessarily have an opponent, but I do have a destination in mind. If you wanted to go first, I'm cool with that. But I also have an opinion.
Um, I guess yeah. Why don't you go first then? Give me like a second to think about it. But yeah, I want to see where you have them ending up this year.
Yeah, so we all know that there's one certain bowl game, local bowl game, that has a bias towards having Rutgers there. The 7-6 record is no stranger to appearing in said bowl game.
Yeah.
Um, I think that Rutgers will be playing their bowl game in Yankee Stadium against an ACC opponent. I'm not 100% sure against who that ACC opponent will be, but I think Rutgers gets named to the Pinstripe Bowl for the third time ever, second time in 3 years.
Yeah.
Makes things easier for us because all we have to do is hop on a train ride and then make our way to Yankee
Yeah.
Stadium.
Mhm.
But I think that's where they're going to end up playing their bowl game.
So back to the Pinstripe. That's a popular prediction. With records like 7-5 and 6-6, it's kind of hard to see like
It's in the cards.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like yeah, that's it
I
could be
would
the best.
like a nicer bowl game. I would like to go to a warm weather bowl, but
Yeah. I have them actually like going to Detroit to whatever that bowl game is called. The game above sports bowl against their third MAC opponent this year. And I think what 7-5 might put them in the Pinstripe. 6-6 might see them in the bowl in Detroit. Which is
or even the Fenway Bowl.
or
That
even the
could be.
Fenway. Yeah, it could be. I think it would be interesting if Rutgers ends up taking on like another MAC opponent. It could be one of the better ones again. So it could be Toledo, it could be Buffalo. Who knows? I don't know if they do rematches or
I
not.
want
But
it to be against another Power Four opponent. I don't want to be a group of. Even ACC, I will take. I just don't want it to be against a group of
yeah,
6
but I don't know.
teams.
I feel like 6-6 might wind themselves towards like like that bowl game. But if they are able to get a seventh, then they might end up even 6-6. They might also end up in the pinstripe again. But maybe I'm also a little reluctant to do that because they were just there, and
Well, we know
I
the
don't know.
Pinstripe Bowl has a favor, like they like
Yeah, they
scheduling
do, and they
Rutgers. They
weren't able
want,
to go last year because like it was a repeat, and they ended up playing the Rate Bowl, which was nice to play like in the warmer weather against a quality Kansas State team. Almost had a win too. They blew a lead, but I don't know. I mean, I hope I'm wrong about like that, but it's probably going to be something like that, like the Pinstripe Bowl. It could be the game the game in Detroit. Who knows? Like it could be the Fenway Bowl. I'm seeing like
it can
some
even be
national
the
outlets.
Idaho Potato Classic.
Yeah, I think those are more for group of fives. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably going to be either the Pinstripe or the Game Above Bowl. A lot of predictions have them either missing a bowl game or playing in one of those. So I would assume something like that. It could definitely be the Pinstripe against the ACC team. Because there might be like some worse like Big Ten teams that end up making a bowl game, like we talked about, like Maryland and stuff like that. Like if teams like that end up finding their way into a bowl game, that those are probably going to get called for Detroit and some of the worst spots, and Rutgers might end up in the pinstripe. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, a lot of things, like a lot of a lot of excitement for that. Obviously, like I think the takeaway from this episode is obviously gonna it's a tough schedule, and I mean I think that we see that like from even our easier opponents aren't going to be necessarily easy, but by the end of this thing it gets really tough. I think that puts a cap on how many wins Rutgers gets and what bowl game they end up going to, but I think Rutgers does battle it out. They survive. They might even be able to win like an Iowa or an Illinois upset type game, but I don't really see the season going too much farther than that at the moment.
I will
um
say that it is kind of interesting that in my head I have them having a tougher time with like Ohio and Miami, Ohio, than I do see them having a tougher time with like Purdue. You
Yeah,
know?
that might be. They might. I feel like Purdue and Maryland, like the air is gonna be out of the balloon. And Ohio, Miami, Ohio are gonna be like giving Rutgers like fits for a while, and like Rutgers is gonna have to really, really work hard. So it's really interesting. I mean, those actually might play out like Ohio, Miami, Ohio are like the tougher games versus Purdue and Maryland. But then on the other hand, you have like the really tough games like Penn State, Ohio State, like Illinois. Games like that. Obviously, the big stretch, Iowa to Minnesota. We've talked about it like at length on this podcast, but I think we're both comfortably like we're projecting now a Minnesota win. I think we're both kind of like 50-50ish on Iowa. You have them right now as a win, and I have them as a loss, but a closer one. Washington seems to be now in the loss column. So it seems like as this offseason's gone on, we've kind of updated our predictions a little bit, but I think we're in the same range. We're looking at 6-6, maybe 7-5. Schedule's going to be tough, but I think Rutgers does survive it, and they do get to a bowl at the end. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, that's all I have here as well. So that is going to do it for our podcast today. As always, we predicted that Rutgers is going to make a bowl game, but that's something we've been saying for a while.
Right.
And with that, I have nothing else to add. Arnav, it doesn't sound like you do. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and remember that the bells must ring.